Good afternoon. We have a quorum of members present this afternoon, and the New York City Board of Correction, July 16th, 2024 meeting is now in session. Our first order of business is a vote on the agenda for today's board meeting. Which board members have received? Will a board member move for a vote to approve the July 16th, 2024 meeting agenda? Does any member have edits or comments on the agenda? Do you have, okay, so your comments are noted. I think because there's significant changes that need to be made to the bylaws, in my opinion.
Can we get more information on why, the substance of why it was added to the agenda, to take a look at without substantial supporting information of why they were even changed?
Bylaws were changed and amended on June 5th, 2023, which I was not in attendance of that session. So there was no consensus from this chair as to the changes and recommendations that were implemented in that amended bylaws. Therefore, I brought up a bylaws review and to move forward with the bylaws resolutions as seen fit.
So I just want to follow up, because even the old bylaws does not give the chair the power to determine what this board votes on as a majority. So you don't have to be there. Just as you abstain from votes, your vote doesn't have to be there, a majority of the board according to the bylaws.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay, so I just want to be sure we're trying to move to a control. You get to determine, not the majority of an independent body.
This is a voting body.
Right, body, not person.
This.
So can you tell
What
us
is your
why?
question? What is your question?
My question is exactly why you felt the need to revert back to the bylaws without providing sufficient supporting information on why. If there's a legitimate reason, we have no problems. We were able, when they were changed, there was a legitimate reason of why it needed to be changed, because the current interpretation of them at that time was creating a dictatorship of an individual and not a board being independent. So there are some things we need to discuss, and I just wanted clarity on what is the one clause that you felt we need to have this discussion.
First of all, you say dictatorship and other disparaging remarks. In my view, these bylaws I didn't establish; they were established since 2015.
Exactly, and some things have to be updated. We updated them.
Well, and some things that you updated were not appropriate.
And that's all we're asking for, you to tell us why.
But there was no question to me as to why, other than moving forward from this board at any time, and you had notice 2 weeks ago.
Yes, there was an email. I asked the question. I don't know why this is on here. I'm not going to argue with you.
It's not arguing. I didn't see no email from you on that regard, or I would have responded.
Keep the same tone I'm keeping with you. So let me say this. Let me finish. In your comment, whether you know it or not, you made all comments about me, yourself, and not this body. I'm stating that the body made a decision. Why is it one individual is determining? All I'm asking is, why are we back here? That's all we're asking for. We can move forward.
We can move forward.
But you're not willing to answer.
I don't have an answer.
You don't feel you don't have to. Thank you.
You're welcome. All in favor of approving the July 16th, 2024 agenda? Aye. Okay, have one abstention and one no. The agenda has been approved with one no and one abstention. Our second order of business is a vote on the draft minutes for the June 25th, 24 board meeting, which board members have received. Will a board member move for a vote to approve the June 25th, 2024 board meeting minutes?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does any member have edits or comments on the minutes? There being none, all in favor of approving the June 25th, 2024 board meeting minutes? All in favor, say
Aye.
Aye.
any opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is a discussion and vote on the board's bylaws. And now the introduction of specific issues discussed on and voted on. As I indicated to Board Member Hoskins, the amended bylaws of June 5th, 2023 took away a tremendous, I guess, authority from the chair, which is inherent in a chair position since 2015. Excuse me, you are out of order, please. You are out of order, please. I ask that you restrain, please. Thank you. So at this time, I would like to make some corrections to that, to the bylaws that will reflect. And it's not significant changes, but it is some changes which I believe allows for accountability, allows for direction for the board and the staff, so that things can be more appropriately channeled by the Board of Correction. Some of the substantive changes that I look to have presented and voted on today concerning the executive director being an officer of the board. The executive director is a staff, not an officer of the board. I think that conflicts with the charter in its own inherent statements as well. There was a provision that the chair served as chief executive officer of the board. I don't think that anybody could have 9 board members leading and directing at one time. And what you have and you develop at that point is chaos, among the board. So I request that be reinstated. There's a statement in Article, I think 6(2), it says the board shall appoint members of each committee. I don't know how the board appoints members of each committee. That's usually a chair's function. And this is the last time I'm going to ask you to please refrain from making comments. Okay, could you please leave the room? Okay, I'm going to have you removed if you continue on, please. This is my last request. Please restrain. Okay. that is inherent a chair's function. I don't know how 9 board members select committee members. How do you run into a stalemate? So I like that reinstated. And lastly, in hearings, it says the chair or the board. Yeah, I think that's fine. The chair or the board by a majority vote can establish hearings. So that can remain. And that's public hearings. I think that we can go into discussions and comments, or a formal motion can be presented to address my concerns.
You finish?
You have a question?
Are you finished?
Do you have a question?
With him being finished, everything you have pointed out is about power and control. The reason the bylaws were changed is because the CEO language interpreted that the chair shall serve as the chief executive officer of the board, not staff, and shall preside at all meetings of the board, and ex facto be a member on all committees. The reason that was struck out because the interpretation turned into a power struggle and demoralization of staff. One, by asking the executive director to leave her office at the board's office so you could have an office. That clause did not indicate you were a chief executive. I'm not finished and I did
You're out
interrupt
of
you.
order. We're talking,
I
if you're
am
talking
not-
about staff, we
am
will go into executive
Talking
session.
about the bylaw.
I restrict that. I
You can't,
restrict that.
that's the problem. You think you got a power, you
Let me
don't.
say, if you're
Yeah.
talking about staff issues, we must go into.
It's not
executive
staff
session.
issues. I'm talking about the bylaws and how it was
We
interpreted.
must go into executive session if you're
You
talking
don't
about
get to
staff.
censor my voice that your shit don't get called out today.
Well, let me
So
tell you,
secondly, the next thing that you were actually bringing up about appointing committee members, according to their level of expertise, has functioned perfectly well once the bylaws were changed and effectively executing on the rules, on the rulemaking, death reports, and the women's committee. Nothing has changed in that. It did not cause an uproar. The part about the executive director being a part of the board, any nonprofit or organization, if you understand how boards work, the executive director serves as a member of the board without a vote. That is all that bylaw is saying. So there again, I asked, what was the reason outside of power and control that we are having this conversation? Secondly, I want to go to the fact again, where the board members who have expertise are not being leveraged and utilized, which is why that clause was inserted. So I get that if the one clause you want back is that the chair is the CEO, the chair is the chair. It was the interpretation of CEO that was being abused and misused within these committees, making a recommendation and a motion for the needed committees. It was the abuse that happened within the staff. It was the abuse and authority, even when we were fighting to get video access back. And you utilizing your position as chair not to let this body vote because of your special interests. So that's why it was changed. I have no problems having the bylaws the way they were if they are interpreted properly and with respect according to what it is.
Yeah.
The bylaws of this Board of Corrections does not give the board or the chair the authority to manage staff. We hire an executive director. That is who we supervise. She handles the day-to-day operations. That's all that was removed from there. If you want to have an authentic conversation on what you feel was taken outside of power I'm willing to have that conversation because you haven't given me that argument,
You finished, Board Member Hoskins?
and I yield.
And I'll just respond by saying that I have no specific special interests for the record, okay? None whatsoever. I function on this board as chair as an independent body based on its charter. No one's whispered to me in no alleys anywhere for direction or anything, for the record. The injustice that you say was done on June 5th, 2023.
That took your power.
When a meeting was convened by the majority of the board at that time.
Who has the right? According to
Right.
bylaw.
And I
We
said-
convened it, so it's
Can I
injustice
finish?
to you.
Can I finish?
No, not
Okay.
really, but keep going.
Yes, I will keep going. Thank you.
Oh,
And so therefore, I look to correct, in my opinion, what is rightfully and justifiably changes to the bylaws. Someone inherently in 2015, I didn't write the bylaws previously. I did not. So what is the history of the organization that it was inherent to put in a number of those clauses? I wrote none of this.
totally
None of it.
understand.
None of it. So where does the power come that was inherited by tradition and by knowledge of previous board members and previous chairs? None
think-
of this, nothing that I'm looking to reinstitute, I wrote.
I get that. I
Okay.
totally agree. So I will say this. Everything
Hold
is
on.
subject
Hold
for
on.
updates.
Hold
I
on.
don't have to hold on.
I'm-
Everything is subject to updates.
Another board
It was
member has-
written in 2015, and just like we update our manuals, just like we update procedures, we updated the bylaws according to the needs. Everything does it. You don't change your order the way you changed it in 2015 and 2024. It's a different process.
All right, thank you, board member. I think Dr. Cohen.
And I want to.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to go respond to a number of your points, but the first one I want to respond to is the notion that there's no historical basis for this. There is an historical basis for the Board of Correction to select the board, not the executive director, not the chair of the board, the executive director. Since 1975, when John Brickman was selected by the board to be the chair, every single other person has been and is required to be by the old bylaws and the new bylaws to be appointed by the board. We've usually had
There's no change in that in any of my recommendations.
well, the reason why we did this is because we as a group of five with majority appointed a executive director, and you replaced her with someone else who was not chosen by the board. That was an extraordinary move on your part, and I don't believe that under this.
Again, Dr. Cohen, Board Member Cohen, I'm going to recommend, if we're going to talk staff-related matters specifically, that we will have to go into executive session.
I don't want to talk staff member.
Okay, well, he is. Okay, so please, I just ask that you refrain from, or someone make a motion to go into executive session, where we can have a discussion about why reasons and things of that nature were done. Other than that, I ask that you refrain from that area of discussion.
Well, I was.
The area
Excuse
is
me, you are
not
out of order.
bylaws. The
Board Member
area is not
Hoskins,
staff,
you are out of
it's
order.
relating to the
You
action
have not
of
been,
the
you have
bylaws.
not been recognized.
The bylaws say, give a process for appointing the executive director and dismissing the executive director. And it is not a board chair decision. I'd also like to add that one of the important reasons why the board changed the bylaws was because of your lack of activity in support of getting video back. And on the first day, on January 3rd, you said, I'm going to work on it. and you spoke to you said you told us that you spoke to the commissioner and perhaps to your connections in City Hall. I assume that you did because you said it. But beyond that, you were silent. And it was not, and when the board finally began to pursue litigation, your position was to get out of the room rather than to discuss it. We needed to get video back. And rather than develop a strategy to do it, and you left the room.
Let me be clear, if I can respond, and then I'll go on to board member,
Vice Chair.
Vice Chair. Sorry about that. Let me just state for the facts. We were very close to getting video back with my actions. Okay, I'll just state that for the record. We were very close to getting it back.
How long were we at it? 6 months. 6 months.
Okay, so Vice Chair.
Hello, everybody. I sit in this seat and constantly remain confused, and I'm trying to figure out why, because I'm a fairly intelligent woman. So it says here in Article 5, Section 4, 5 members or more shall constitute a quorum. Am I right? I'm also looking at paperwork that said in this emergency board meeting, 5 members of the Board of Correction was present and accounted for, and that was a quorum, right?
Correct.
And the bylaws and procedures were changed because there was a quorum present who voted accordingly, according to the rules and procedures, right?
And they have been abided by, correct?
Okay, so why is this back on the agenda, Chair Sampson? Why is this back? If there was 5 of us present, and no, it was not me, I was not a member of the board, and this was voted on, this was discussed. It's hot in this room. We don't want to sit up here and keep rehashing and bringing up old business. This was discussed, it was voted on. It went into policy and procedure. Why are we back here a year later at the same place? What happened to make us come back? Because so far, I don't see anything of substantialness that happened to make us come back to the same place again.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Vice Chair, but I did state my rationale.
That rationale.
Board Member Cozier.
Yeah, I want to raise, I guess, more of a point of procedure. I am a fairly new board member. I wasn't here when of course, the bylaws were voted on. And in fact, I think there are only 3 members of the current board who were participating when the bylaws were changed. And I only say that to say, it seems to me that any board member, including the chair, can ask that we review the rules, just as we can review the minimum standards, etc. And so my suggestion is this, that the chair and anyone else who is making recommendations or suggestions with respect to amendment of the bylaws, that be put in writing, that it be circulated to the full board to give everyone an opportunity in advance to be able to review it and then be able to opine on it. I think that that's the proper way to go because frankly, most of us were not involved in the process. And in terms of preparation for today, really didn't know what the particular focus would be with respect to amendments. And it's very difficult to work orally to talk about amending multiple provisions. So that's my suggestion. My suggestion is that we table it until the next board meeting, and before the next board meeting, that an amended version, proposed amended version be circulated so everyone can see exactly what is being proposed and be in a better position to opine on whether or not they support it.
Thank you,
Uh,
Judge. I'd like to make a motion that
One
exactly what the judge said.
1 second, please. Could you turn your mic off because it's feedback? Okay, are there any other comments to that effect before other board members that have not made comments? If you'd like to, then I'll turn it over to Board Member Hoskins if there's none. Okay, Board Member Hoskins.
The current agenda item asks for a vote to revert back. I would like to amend that to a motion to review the current bylaws for the areas identified, and that committee, that ad hoc committee, be made up of the chair ex facto, but new board members, Helen Skipper, the judge, and I would actually ask for Dr. Cohen to be on there for historical aspect of an old board. That's the motion. A motion to create an ad hoc committee to review the areas of change within the bylaws. And that committee is made up of the chair ex facto, vice chair Helen Skipper as chair of that committee, with the judge and Dr. Cohen for historical aspect.
Second.
There has been a motion to the floor. And I'll restate the motion as I best understood it. No, I said I'll restate the motion as I best understood it. And the motion is that a committee be formed to address the bylaws, the rules, and respect to chairing that committee, Vice Chair Helen Skip, Judge Cozier, and Dr. Cohen. And so we'll move to a vote on that.
I want to be clear for the record, the areas identified by you are the only areas that this committee is looking to modify. You identified the areas of change. Those are the areas and a rationale that this committee is going to look at and come back with a recommendation to the full board.
Can I say something, Bruce?
Yes, go ahead, please. Could you say?
You know, I'm listening to what's going on now, and I'm as confused as all hell, because of the fact is that this board decided to have a meeting of 5 members on their own without inviting other members.
Not true.
And I did not get information with regards to the outcome of the meeting until after the fact as a courtesy. So what I'm saying is that now when you select these people to be part of this committee, that you also include some of those people that were left out of the last meeting. When they had, you do me a favor, you're not part of this board. Do me a favor, this is not part of your board, please. Don't interrupt me.
I must say, if one more outburst, you must leave the room or I'll have you removed.
So what I'm saying is that I think that perhaps we should also include some members on the board that were not there last time, where you leisurely took your time to have your own meeting, right, to decide the changes on the bylaws for this board. So that's why basically a note that I wanted to bring out. And secondly, I hear the reason why they took charge with regards to the voting on the films or the videos. We were in the process. I was in the process of working together with Jacqueline Sherman when she called me directly to see if we could do something to get the videos into place. I immediately called the chair. We discussed the situation, and the process was going to be made until somebody on the board decided to bring litigation against the Department of Correction. So the process was being taken, by the way, prior to any new members coming on the board. So basically, do I need that? Okay. But anyway, I just wanted to enlighten the situation with regards to the videos. The chair was really involved, definitely involved, and we were going to get those videos until somebody on the board decided to litigate against the Department of Correction to get the videos back. Just a point of clarification. That's all. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Amendments or suggestions?
Reflect that, that all members of the board were invited and only 5 came, and you were invited. And no one member of the board decided to litigate. We met to discuss whether or not we should litigate because we were not getting it. And the board could not function in its fundamental responsibility without video. And the Department of Correction, under this administration, was totally happy for us not to function, which is why they stopped us getting access to video. But we were not.
Yeah.
And that's why the litigation was.
Well, I think that there are other facts associated why the department have acted the way they did out of respect for the department. There was some allegations of misuse and things of that nature. But let me just state, you know, I committed to building consensus with this board and cooperation, you know, this year. You know, and I still stand with that. But I'm not going to be put in a position where board members and others think that public shaming or derogatory comments are going to move the policy and decision-making that are so necessary that I view that this board can be the most effective and most active board of correction that there is. So yes, you know, the public scrutiny is good, but I'm here to take that. I'm here to take that because I believe in the work that I do and the work that this team of as board members do, and we will continue. So bring on the public shaming or whatever it takes, but we will move forward. That being said, there is a motion on the floor, and I'll ask for a vote for that, towards that motion, and I'll ask individual votes towards that motion, and I'll call out a name of a board member, and then we will have that vote. So, Vice Chair Skip, on the motion.
Aye.
Board Member Hoskins,
Yes.
Board Member Cotier,
Yes.
Board Member Cohen,
Yes.
Board Member Ramos,
Yes.
Board Member Pitts,
Yes.
Board Member Jude Dorset.
Yes. I would add that, I think that this proposal doesn't make sense.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you.
I was going to say that the judge's proposal, what he stated earlier, seems reasonable in terms of getting more clarity as to how, we move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, that being said, this motion carries and a committee has been formed to address the bylaw concerns to be presented for the next board meeting in September. At this time, I turn it over to Jasmine, our executive director.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I just wanted to note it's extremely hot in the building because it's a energy saving day for this building. So I do apologize on behalf of the building, and I will get to the point of the meeting. I'll start with an overview of the board's latest progress report on borough-based jails, issued on July 1st, 2024, and updated on July 15th, 2024. Just as background, in 2019, the City of New York formally committed to closing Rikers Island and building a smaller, safer, fairer, more humane jail system in the boroughs. the City Council approved a plan to build and operationalize 4 new jail facilities in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx by 2027. Under Local Law 192 of 2019, the board is required to report every 6 months on the city's progress of closing the city's jails on Rikers and the transition to borough-based jails. On July 1st, 2024, the Board of Correction released its 4th report detailing the progress of the city's borough-based jails plan. The report addressed the impact of proposed designs for the borough-based facilities on people in custody and compliance with the board's minimum standards. After the release of BOC's progress report on July 1st, 2024, the Department of Correction and Correctional Health Services provided clarifying and factual content for the report. We thank each of the agencies for their feedback and note that neither agency received a draft for review prior to publishing this mandated report. An updated report noting the clarifying information was released on July 15th, 2024. And I'm just going to go through some highlights that are in the report. Regarding the deadline, in March 2024, the city's budget director informed City Council that the August 2027 deadline to close Rikers will not be met. Regarding population, the city's current plans for the borough-based jails is 4,160 beds. However, as of June 23rd, 2024, the jail population's monthly average is approximately 6,554. The board has received concerns and recommendations from different stakeholders on how to reduce the jail population, including a recommendation from the Urban Justice Center that the mayoral administration utilize Article 6A of the state correction law, which authorizes the department to release individuals before the end of their sentences. Regarding recreation, the board has expressed concern that the design of the planned outdoor recreation spaces are not in fact outdoors due to the physical spaces being enclosed with high solid ceilings and security mesh walls with panels along the lower part of the walls. An outdoor recreation space that does not allow for direct access to sunlight and air 7 days per week is in violation of the board's minimum standards. The Department of Design and Construction and the Department of Corrections position is that the recreation yards, as currently designed, are in compliance with all applicable definitions of outdoor recreation. And I want to note that all involved agencies are engaged in ongoing good faith conversations to see if there's a collaborative solution that works on all levels. Regarding therapeutic beds, between 21 and 22% of each borough-based jail will be dedicated to therapeutic housing areas, which is based on the proportion of the population that has serious mental health needs. We look forward to hearing updates from the department on the borough-based jails plan and from CHS on the outposted therapeutic beds outside of borough-based jails later in the meeting. Next, I'll provide a brief update on items that were discussed at previous meetings. At the board's January 2024 meeting, Associate Commissioner Pace informed the board that the department is looking into auditing their linen and laundry exchange process, and we look forward to hearing those updates later in the meeting. Next, we share our deepest condolences with the families of department staff who have passed since the board's June meeting. The staff who have passed are Officer Andre Knight, Officer Antonio Aponte, Retired Captain Robert Mitchell, Retired Officer Michael Robles, Retired Officer Joseph Arce, Retired Officer John Roosevelt Dinkins, Retired Officer Robin Steinbach, Retired Assistant Deputy Warden James Vincent Noon, and Retired Officer Fernando Freddy Garcia. We also share our deepest condolences with the family and loved ones of Ms. Bernice Forrester, a former health service administrator who worked on Rikers from the 80s to 2012 and who passed away on May 27, 2024. Regarding the census, As of July 14th, 2024, there were approximately 6,397 individuals in department custody. And I'll break it down by facility. In Bellevue Hospital Prison Ward, there are 49. Elmhurst Prison Ward, 4. EMTC, 1,460. GRVC, 967. NIC, 256. OBCC, 1,456. RESH, 149. RMSC, 378. RNDC 1,003, and West Facility 674. Next, an update on our heat reporting. The board is continuing to conduct comprehensive heat monitoring in NYC jails this summer to ensure the safety and well-being of people in custody. As part of this effort, we've launched a heat monitoring dashboard, which is updated weekly. As of the latest update on Monday, July 15th, staff have completed 29 out of the 64 planned tours between May 31st and August 30th. Based on the tours completed so far, the board finds that the department has complied with its directive to ensure that temperatures do not exceed 80 degrees in housing areas for people in custody who are clinically designated heat sensitive, and at least 2 fans are provided and ice is delivered between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. in housing areas for people in custody who are not clinically designated heat sensitive when outdoor temperatures exceed 85 degrees. A final staff report summarizing our findings will be issued in October of 2024. And that concludes the BOC staff updates.
Thank you, Executive Director Jasmine. Do any board members have any committee updates before we move to the next agenda item?
If there aren't any committee updates, I would like to make a motion about committees.
That's not in order at this time. We will get to it. That's committee updates. We will move forward. I will come back to you on that, okay? I will come back to you on that. Thank you. PIC public comments? I believe there are no PIC public comments. DOC updates. We will now turn to DOC for updates on the items listed on the agenda.
My name is Alex Maldonado, and I oversee the borough-based jail program on behalf of the Department of Correction. I do want to thank you for your comments about the report and the clarifications that were made. We really appreciate you including those to clarify both the department's position as well as my partner agency, Department of Design and Construction, on the borough-based jail program. As you know, the department is fully engaged and activated in this borough-based jail program, building 4 new jails throughout the 4 boroughs, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx. And without much further delay, because it's hot in here, I want to introduce Eduardo Del Valle, who is the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Design and Construction, who can provide you with additional feedback and updates as to where we are with the borough-based jail program.
Alex. Good afternoon. I'm Eduardo Del Valle, Deputy Commissioner, Department of Design and Construction, leading the BBJ program, the capital program on behalf of DDC and the city. As you probably know, the Brooklyn contract for design build services was awarded last June. And at this point, we have reached 100% design development on that facility. We are now in the process as well of doing site investigation work, geotech investigation, meaning subgrade investigation, getting ready for foundations work to start in the fall. So that project is proceeding as per the schedule that was set upon contract award. Regarding the Bronx and Queens facilities, those contracts will be noticed to proceed probably by mid next month. At this point, we do have registration as of 2 days ago, yesterday, from the controllers for the Bronx, and we are expecting Queens to be registered for that contract award shortly as well. And so upon issuing the NTP, of course, we will embark on design development for those two facilities with all of the sponsor agencies and work through that, development process, which for these facilities, being how complex they are, takes time. And obviously, we need to satisfy a lot of needs, not the least of which obviously are regulatory needs and requirements. In Manhattan, at this point, we are in the final stages of what we call in the design build lingo at the end market period. And that means that we have been working with the two shortlisted design builders over the past several months to develop schematics that lead up to the proposals that they will submit in the fall. At that point, those proposals will be evaluated by several panels, and a best value proposer will be identified. The goal at this point is to have that proposer identified and ensue with limited negotiations and complete that process by the first quarter of 25. So very high level, that's where we are from a design and construction standpoint on the 4 facilities.
Excuse me 1 second, if you don't mind. What is your name again, sir?
Eduardo Del Valle.
Okay, Mr. Duvalier, I'm probably
That's fine.
butcher it up.
Eduardo is fine.
Eduardo, I think you stated that you were 100% ready for Brooklyn.
So yeah, design development has reached 100% design milestone, which means that we have completed the design development phase.
Okay, so that means you're sort of ready to go to construction from there, or is that?
Not quite, not yet. We still have the construction documents to develop, what we call the CDs. And at this point, we're at about 15% into the CD phase.
Okay, my only concern is that the executive director did state that there, in her remarks, that there's some current issues with regard to outdoor recreation. And I just don't know how you get to 100%, that there's still a dispute to the minimum standards.
I understand the concern. We have designed these facilities in full accordance with all applicable local laws, including Local Law 194. Now, Local Law 194 calls for recreational outdoor rec areas to be built in the housing units. So as you know, these are high-rise facilities, and the housing units on each floor are stacked vertically, which means that the rec areas that are associated with those housing units are also stacked, much as a terrace or a balcony in any other residential facility in the city. So we have designed these outdoor rec areas as an extension of the housing of units as required by Local Law 194, and due to security concerns, and as well as feedback that we received from the community in our design development workshops for privacy of the neighbors around this building. Again, this is a high-rise building with residential facilities, also high-rise facilities adjacent right across the street. So we have designed the outdoor rec areas with access to fresh air and natural light. And that is what Local Law 194 calls for and defines outdoor recreation space as, meaning having access to natural light and fresh air. So we have designed the exterior enclosure of these outdoor rec areas to allow for the free flow of fresh air and the penetration of daylight into the recreational areas and in fact, past the recreational areas and into the day rooms, because the day rooms are adjacent to the recreational areas and they're divided by a glass wall.
Okay, Board Member Hoskins and then Board Member Cohen.
If I could I add to that? I just want to add, and I want to punctuate what the executive director said. We are at 100% DD, and we are working feverishly to meet our goals and our schedule with the program, but we are also in active negotiation. We hear the board's concern regarding the outdoor recreation spaces. We are working with our partner agencies and the administration to really see a path forward. Again, these were designed in real good faith. We believed in Folsom that we were designing to meet local and state regulation. But again, the negotiations continue. My partner here, who controls the budget and schedule, may not be quite as happy as I am to report that, but we are working with you as well as our partner agencies to see a path forward to meet the needs of our population and meet your minimum standards.
I like to say that I control budget and schedule. I do, actually. I manage it on behalf of the city and with the input and feedback of many stakeholders. But yes, thank you for that, Alex, because we continue to work and we will be reaching out to the executive director regarding some additional suggestions in terms of modifications that could be made to the exterior, the outdoor rec areas as they are designed right now, to provide more of a feeling, if you would. And I'm going to emphasize that it's a feeling of being outdoors, because technically, from a purely local law interpretation, we do meet the legal requirements dictated by local law 194. But we do understand the concern that with the louver walls the way they are now, varying in height between 6 and 7 feet, that the perception may be such that it doesn't feel like an outdoor space, although it is.
I was going to ask for a little bit more. Thank you. I was going to ask for a little bit more clarification because you brought up something I think that's very important when you're talking about construction of correctional facility with access to fresh air and light. That still could be a 16-foot wall where the top of it is open to come in to protect the other people. So can you give me a little bit more of, is it truly outdoor space or is it an enclosed space with open tops for air and sun? I couldn't visualize what you were saying.
Yeah, so it's an open space, it's a terrace that instead of having railings, glass railings or any other type of railings that you would see in a residential facility, it has a louver wall that has got open louvers to allow for the flow of fresh air that are about 6 to 7 feet tall, and they vary in height. And for architectural design reasons, we didn't want to set one straight line. We wanted to add some diversity, visual interest by varying the heights. So that louver wall is about 6 to 7 feet. It allows for the flow of fresh air. And then above that 6 foot to 7 foot louver wall, there is an open screen, security screen. And that it allows, it's a screen, basically. It's not a chain link wall, chain link fence. I'm not going to call it that. It's a lot more sturdy than that for security reasons, but it's the same type of feel.
So I get that air could come through the velours, but can the people on the terrace look out and see out?
As it is designed right now, no. And that was done, as per issues that we discussed both with the community in terms of the community being able to look into and people looking out and across the street into apartments, as well as DOC security concerns. So one of the things that we're going to explore with the board is a variation whereby perhaps that louver wall is dropped and is waist high, like any other railing on a typical terrace. And then again, that would allow more visual transparency for the people from within that terrace. we'll have to address the other concerns relative to the community and the DOC security. We will have to strike a balance.
Dr. Cohen.
Just to restate the board's concern, I mean, our standard says an outdoor recreation area must allow for direct access to sunlight and air. A window is not that. I mean, a window lets light in, a window lets air in. It's what we asked for in the standards on behalf of people living inside these jails is a direct access to sunlight and air. And I hope that in your continued discussions, you reach that point. I understand that, I don't know what promises, I mean, I'm sure, I can imagine the number of promises and the amount of support given to the communities around where you're building the jails. And I'm sure it was a very difficult process, but it doesn't override the standards.
Understood.
To provide the board with a copy of the floor plan or the schematics so that we could better visualize what that would look like?
We can work with DOC and provide that by way of DOC, sure.
We also are in the habit, I'm sorry, sir, of providing the board with quarterly briefings, and we look forward to welcoming you to those as well, our newest board member.
Yeah, just not finished just quite yet. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Okay.
I'm here all day.
Just in the design, Eduardo, has you and your executive team visited jails in designing this?
Yes, we have.
And do you really have a sense of what's appropriate outdoor space?
We do, especially in high-rise jail.
And in your opinion, not local law 194, as you cited, do you feel that the plans that are established at this time are appropriate?
We're in compliance with local law 194.
Okay, so you feel that you are,
We are, but we're still, as Alex said, we're open to discussions further. But we would not have gotten this far in terms of design development if we weren't sure that we were in compliance with local law 194.
I can just state for the record that in discussion with a number of board members privately, this is a critical issue for this board. And I really would like to see a timeline when we can have these negotiations or reviews come to a head so that we can, as a board, understand the direction and make decisions before your operational and construction plan gets too far ahead.
Absolutely. We're as interested in getting there as you are, because we do have, again, the scheduling pressures and the budget pressures. As you know, in construction, time is money. And so for every day that we lose, that's just.
So you can say by our next board meeting sometime in September, we should be.
I would hope sooner than that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from members?
I'll have some other questions for the department after the completion of the.
Then I'm going to let our executive director ask a question first, and then we'll move down to the board level questions.
Thank you. I was just going to ask a question about staffing levels. Is there, does the department intend to improve staffing levels in the borough-based jails? And is there a plan towards recruitment and retention when you move towards the borough-based jails?
Sure. As you know, we continue to face issues with regard to recruitment and retention, but we are actively engaged in those processes as we speak. And with regard to the future in the borough-based jails, we are maximizing staffing efficiencies throughout these facilities. That is what critical importance to us, because we want to make sure that everybody is safe in these facilities with certainly the minimal number of staff needed to do so. But we also hope that the borough-based jails will serve as sort of a be its own recruitment flyer, if you will, right? These jails are going to be safe. They're going to be secure. They're going to be really nice. Anyone who has seen been to some of our design workshops or looked online has seen some of the renderings, and it will be a place to work that is different from Rikers Island and a far cry from Rikers Island. So we hope that that will also serve as again, a recruitment flyer, if you will, for staff and attract more staff to work in these facilities. I hope that answers your question.
Well,
Dr. Cohen?
I think this question is related. If not, someone else can answer it. We had a report about the heat. And I've been on the board for only 15 years. And pretty much there's been 15 summers during that period. And it gets very hot in the jails. And in the offices of the department on Rikers Island, there's air conditioning. How many units of people, how many people and how many units on Rikers Island are in use right now that do not have air conditioning? Because the 80 is your rule, but it's not the best approach.
Sure. So I'm probably not the best person to speak to that. I will say that there are unconditioned facilities on the island currently, but we are actively working to figure out ways to make them cooler. In terms of the borough-based jails, fully air conditioned,
No,
both staff spaces as well as individuals in custody. We understand that it's hot and it's unseasonably hot recently. And so this is something that the department is aware of, certainly keeps tabs on, because it affects both our individuals in custody and staff, as you know. So we're aware of it, we're working on it, and again, I'm not necessarily the best person to speak to it, but your concerns are well taken.
You're using all of Rosie's?
I'm sorry?
Is RMSC completely filled?
I
This
can't-
is an air-conditioned facility.
My understanding is that RMSC is separated, right? We have our restrictive housing unit on one side with the male population, and the female population is on the other side.
And are there open housing areas in RMSC that are not being used right now?
I can't speak to that right now, sir.
Okay.
Apologies.
Well, it's disturbing that the department has decided not to provide air conditioning for people on Rikers Island.
Yes. Vice Chair?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you for coming for this very comprehensive report. But for clarity and visualization in my mind, you said that these are high-rise buildings
Yes.
and that the rec areas are adjacent to the housing areas.
Yes.
So am I correct in assuming that every housing area would have its own specific rec area instead of like a common area on the roof?
That's correct, ma'am.
Okay, so going back to Rosie's, when Rosie's was first built, every housing area had its separate side yard for recreation, which was used maybe a year or two, and then it was discontinued because of staffing issues and other issues. So how did you look at that and kind of reconcile yourself to using this same model when right now we're already talking about staffing shortages and staffing issues? Because I think I'm aware enough to say that if there are housing officers in the housing area and there is a rec area adjacent to the housing area or through the day room, then there should be staff in that rec area as well. And we're already going through all of this staff shortages. So I'm saying, did we look backwards as to what happened with Rosie's and think about how we wanted to move forward into the future?
Absolutely. And so what I can tell you is that the rec spaces or the outdoor recreation spaces that are attached to each housing area are fully visible from the interior. And the officer station, we have maximized sightlines from the officer station throughout throughout the floor plan, including the outdoor rec. There is a large glass, I forget the correct term, glazing, that allows the officer to see into the recreation space while also supervising the day room, for example, or managing the tour on both the upper and lower tiers. So we do not feel that it has the same issues that may have presented itself previously. We believe that one officer will be able to supervise the housing areas while they are being afforded recreation time as well. I'll also say that the housing areas do not exceed, I believe, 36. I think is our largest, and most housing units, at least in the Brooklyn facility, are only 18. So we believe that utilizing the direct supervision model, the officers will have full control and also just visibility of the individuals in their care.
Thank you.
I'll also add that if you look at a typical rec area floor plan, it has funny angles, and that is to avoid blind corners. So to Alex's point, the entire housing unit was designed so that it could be visually supervised without the need of cameras, although cameras could be provided from one station. And that officer would have 360 view of every space within that housing unit, including the rec areas. Therefore, not having the need to have staff dedicated to the rec areas only. And again, the amount of, we limited the distance from, in terms of the visual cones, from the officer station to the furthest corner to 80 feet. So this way, again, the visibility is not an issue. Sightlines was very important in our design.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love to see models, floor plans, renderings, drawings of this.
Absolutely.
Any other questions on borough-based jails before the department can continue?
About what?
Borough-based jail.
No.
Okay, so please continue.
I don't believe we have anything else on the borough-based jail program specifically, unless my partner has anything else. If you have no other questions on the borough-based jail program, we can move on with the agenda.
There's no other questions on borough-based jails. I guess status on plans to transfer parcels of land and unused facilities on Rikers to the Department of Citywide Administrative Services.
Sure, I could speak to that. So local law 16 requires the mayor to conduct a review of the available land on Rikers Island for transfer to DCAS. To this date, and there are very specific requirements of what that land is, right? And it cannot be in active use. Currently, all of our land on Rikers Island is in active use, and we have transferred all available land that meets the specifications of under local law 16 to DCAS at this time. But we continue working with the administration to conduct those periodic reviews. Yes, sir.
What is DCAS planning to use that land for?
I believe there are several options on the table, but I'm not entirely, I'm not the best person to speak about it, but there are several different things specifically focused on renewable energy for the city in the future.
Any other questions from board members on the transfer to DCAS? Go ahead, Vice Chair.
According to this, ECBC is closed, correct?
That's right.
Are there any plans to reopen them as housing areas or anything? Are there any plans for those buildings to be used for or within the Department of Correction?
No, but let me take one step back and clarify my comment. AMKC currently has our production kitchen. We do not have any individuals in custody at AMKC at this time, but it is our largest production kitchen and provides, I believe, 10,000 meals every day, 7 days a week, 3 times a day to our individuals in custody in several of our facilities. So at this time, we maintain AMKC open essentially for that particular service. And so again, it's sort of inactive use because of that. But again, there are no individuals in custody currently housed at AMKC, and we have no plans at this time to house individuals at AMKC. With regard to VCBC, it's actually not covered under local law 16. However, VCBZ is decommissioned by the State Commission of Correction. It does not house individuals in custody, and we are currently, talking with the administration on its future use.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I guess the vote is known, you're saying that is not being transferred at this time and it's in discussion?
VCBC is not covered under local law 16. However, we are talking with the administration about its future use, but it is currently within sort of the DOC portfolio of facilities.
And could you just a little elaborate on why it's not covered?
I believe the language of the law speaks specifically to Rikers Island. The VCBC is not on Rikers Island, and nor is it adjacent to it. To cross the water.
I do have one more question, Chair.
Go ahead. Alderman Cohen.
You've recently changed the capacity of these buildings, and the total capacity of the borough-based jails will be?
The capacity of the borough-based jails is 1,040 beds in each
Total,
facility.
and for 4 of them?
For 4 of them, I can't do that math, but each bed each facility is 1,040. So I believe it's 4,100, 4,160. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so there are 6,300 people on Rikers Island right now. What are your plans to decrease that population in order to close down Rikers Island jails as required by city law?
Sure. We are actively working with the administration and our partners at the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice and looking at alternatives to incarceration. We are actively participating in those initiatives, as well as capitalizing on our 6A program, which, as you know, is limited to our sentence population, but our commissioner and our first deputy commissioner are committed to releasing as many individuals throughout the 6A program as they are able to within the specs of the regulation. Again, the Department of Correction, we are obligated to provide care custody to the individuals who are remanded to our care, and we will continue to do so regardless of the population number.
Well, I don't know what those discussions are like. I don't know who's participating in the discussions, but every month the population goes up. They're not being very successful at this point. There seems to be if anything, there is a commitment by this administration to increase the population in the jails, and you can see that from the numbers. And this will conflict greatly with your plan. So I hope that those discussions include, as we talked about, local law and historically, the New York City has been able to decrease its population dramatically. There doesn't seem to be an effort to do that right now based upon the fact that the population is increasing every month. You should release people.
Is there a response?
No, your concerns are valid, sir, and we hear you. And I assure you that the department is fully engaged with the administration and doing what we can to reduce the population. Certainly in the future, looking with an eye towards the future of the borough-based jails, because nobody wants overcrowding in the new facilities, and certainly it would jeopardize the plans to close Rikers Island.
Thank you very much.
My last question here is, and this comes from a while ago, a very high-ranking criminal justice official. And he asked me the question, and excuse my ignorance, why is there no Staten Island borough-based jail?
I joined the project 2 years ago, and it was well underway. I can't speak to that.
Okay, but
Neither can he.
in that conversation, it does create some concern. So maybe the department can revisit it.
I will say, I will offer, all jokes aside, I will offer that, the administration in its communication with the Littman Commission, as well as, what was previously known as a Plan B planning, right? We are exploring all options, right? And that includes Staten Island for potential additional facilities as needed. But again, the goal is to reduce the population, as Dr. Cohen mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Question, Vice Chair.
So now that we're talking about Staten Island, I just want to throw something out there. What about plans for a separate women's-based building? I know we went through it, we discussed it, we planned it, we designed it, and then in the end, we said no. We need to be more gender and culturally responsive to the needs of women, and having them share a building with men is not the way to go. That is not a pathway to gender and culture responsiveness. So if we're gonna relook at the situation about a Staten Island jail, which I'm sure is because of low population status coming from Staten Island, we need to reopen the discussion about a separate women's-based jail that again is culturally and gender responsive to women. Women are not men. We experience incarceration different. We have different needs. And we are tired of being put last and second best behind men when everything is geared towards men.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
As a woman myself, but also I will say, and you know, we have as an administration and as the department explored ways to not only remove the female population off of Rikers Island, but to place them in a separate facility. But one thing I can tell you is that the Queens facility is currently being designed as essentially two jails within one. There will be no, it is complete separation from the male population, and we have centralized the female population because the needs have been identified, obviously academically, et cetera, as different from the male population. So we've centralized the female population in Queens. We are building a jail within a jail, essentially, and trying to focus on the needs of our female population.
I think that the question was, why can't we have a building just for women, period?
Sure.
Why does it be shared with men?
No, I understand. We have certainly explored that, but at this time, we are planning to centralize the female population in the Queens facility.
Look at it very seriously because the most neglected person in the system is the women. Regardless of what happens, they get busted. Their boyfriend cuts them loose. They don't even go visit them. Their family abandons them. Their children are taken away from them. Meanwhile, they're not treated as equally as men. I think we should look at it a little bit more closely and be sensitive to their needs.
Absolutely. We can discuss and certainly further offline some of the ways that we have explored this and also how we can potentially move forward, whether it be in a new facility or in the Queens facility. But currently that is the plan. But we welcome any ideas and or suggestions on how to improve programming and services in that facility for that population, that very vulnerable population.
So we can look forward to a report or something about your discussions and your ruminations and program designs and everything for women. We can look forward to something in writing, some type of report.
I don't know if I'm
September,
at liberty to
October?
say yes, but I think what I can certainly offer is a briefing on some of those things, and then we can discuss offline how best to memorialize that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Excellent topic for the Women's in the Jails Committee for the board to address and work with you on some of those issues. I apologize for the heat. I am, without trying to take away from some of the important content that we have to address here, going to try to speed along because I don't want, the heat to be a real hindrance for folks because it is starting to warm up in the room a little bit.
I might be melting. I'm not sure.
Yes. Okay, so any other statements from DOC?
On the borough-based jail program on DCAS, no, but happy to take any additional questions.
Did someone raise their hand? Hold on one second, Dr. Cohen. Did you raise your hand, Ms. Pitts? No. Go ahead, Dr. Cohen.
Could you please provide us, the department provide us with a report which answers the question that I asked before? How many people are not in air-conditioned units, and how many air-conditioned units don't have people in them?
I think we can certainly provide that to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the Department of Correction? There being none, Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and one more. Cameras, body worn cameras, what's the status?
We are currently evaluating every single body worn camera that had previously been distributed to staff. We have a vendor on site, the actual vendor of the body worn camera system, and they are looking at every single camera. As each camera is cleared and deemed safe for usage, we are slowly but surely rolling them back out to our staff members for use in the jails.
How long will that take?
I'm uncertain on that, sir. We are again engaging with the vendor to make sure that every single camera is safe for use.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be asking that question probably. I'll ask the staff to ask you that question regularly so we can get some information about it. It's very important, I think, for the management of the jail.
Absolutely, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
But thank you for answering.
We'll now turn to CHS for updates on, okay, I'm sorry, there's one more DOC update. DOC's audit on linen and laundry exchange.
Good afternoon, members of the board and everyone here today. My name is Allison Pace, and I serve as the Associate Commissioner of Facility Operations for the New York City Department of Correction. Today, I'm excited to be here to share with you some of our progress that we have made with laundry and linen exchange. As a reminder, laundry exchange is to occur on a weekly basis, and uniform exchange is to occur 2 times per week. A person in custody must surrender 1 set of clothing and linen in order to receive new clean ones. Additionally, individuals in custody have the opportunity to do their personal laundering 2 times per week. When this issue first arose back in January, I stood before you and I stated that we were going to look into all aspects of our laundry, and we made a commitment to look into providing an audit of our services. We reviewed recent complaints and grievances data to understand the scale of the problem. The data did not indicate a widespread or pervasive issue. In fact, the number of complaints related to laundry has been on a downward trend. Neither our Central Storehouse nor our Correctional Industries Division, both of which has a hand in supplying linens and uniforms, reported any supply issues. Regardless, the department committed to undertaking a formal audit of laundry and linen services to ensure compliance with minimum standards and to explore strategies for more efficient delivery of services as warranted. In March, the department conducted an internal audit of linen and uniform exchange. This process consisted of a review of all department policy related to linen and uniform exchange, and then a systematic audit of linen and uniform exchange work was completed island-wide. Throughout the week of January 28th to February 3rd, we conducted this audit. As a part of the audit process, audit staff inspected housing area logbooks, control station logbooks, clothing box logbooks for each facility to notate whether a housing area was being serviced. So we examined everything from dates and time to schedule. Staff then reviewed the Genetec cameras to confirm logbook entries as well as each facility adherence to its own schedule. The audit was focused solely on the points of exchange and not on supply or other associated operations. Overall, we found the facility were 81% compliant with facilitating linen exchange, which occurred once per week. Facilities were found to be 63% compliant with facilitating the uniform exchange, meaning these exchange of uniforms twice a week as indicated by policy. Housing areas that only exchange uniforms once per week were not credited with partial compliance. The department used the results of the audit and the relative operational research to inform a pilot program aimed at increasing efficiency in laundry operations and linen and uniform exchange, which will support a better centralized process of our laundry. We looked at our industries and we really wanted to utilize our industries and maximize our industries in the most efficient way. The uniforms, staff, and person in custody work detail were convened. We had several conversations, continue to have conversation with stakeholders to include the board. The pilot of this kicked off yesterday. And quite excited to tell you that we had worked quite diligently in identifying issues that we found through our audit process, and we looked to find robust ways to be able to deliver services to our population. So we selected EMTC as our point of facility in which we wanted to start our pilot program after the results of our audit. What we wanted to do was to look to see how we could centralize to maximize our efficiency with ensuring that those in our care and custody are provided their minimum standards. The officers in the facility, are assigned to the facility, but however, what is happening now is that our central industries unit launders the clothing and they return them to the facility, and we have dedicated staff members that are there for distribution and collection of laundry. Not only that, we look to see how we can track information, because we found in the audit that even though services were delivered, a part of what we needed to examine was how we were documenting information. As such, we looked at new technology. We looked at ways that we could leverage technology to be able to document accordingly who was receiving what. Yesterday, I was excited about our progress. This morning, again, went to EMTC and met with the staff, met with the population who's actually working to ensure laundry is delivered. And I asked them for their feedback from yesterday's kickoff. They were very excited. They were very excited to see a new system. They were very excited to see that it was inclusive and they were a part of the process. We also had conversation about those individuals who are city sentenced. Those are our workers, and those are our population that we targeted for employment for this, because we know that individuals are going to be returning home, and we wanted to identify soft skills. The conversation today with the population was whether or not you're going to your home, let's start the process of thinking and processing and getting prepared to go home. And so we talked about being able to get up, be prepared for work, and be of service. So as we're going through this pilot at EMTC, we're excited for the possibilities. We're excited to see what it's going to yield. I looked at the data today, and the data was promising. Individuals in housing areas know that we've made it individuals aware that if they are not in the housing area when laundry services are being delivered, what steps they needed to take to be able to get laundry. We also documented who refused and who were out of the unit, whether it was court or other areas. And we do have a makeup day. So the population is quite aware of that. So as we look further into the audit itself, DC Saunders is going to have some additional conversation about all of the steps we took to get to where we are, to have a pilot program at the Eric M. Taylor Center, in which we are now centralizing and maximizing our efficiency for laundry delivery and services.
Good afternoon. I grew up part of my youth in North Carolina, and I went to the churches in North Carolina, and I can tell you, I'm reminded of the unair conditioned churches today, just sitting in this space. So, so let's talk about the audit. Are there any questions about what was just presented to you?
Just please state your name and position.
I'm sorry. My name is Deputy Commissioner James Saunders. I cover health affairs, quality and compliance, and a number of other divisions. Thank you for having me in front of you today. Are there any questions about what Associate Commissioner Allison Pace just shared with you?
I just had a quick question. Is there a plan to expand the pilot to any of the other jails?
So we have a 90-day pilot at the EMTC. We are looking day by day to see where we can actually make tweaks, because as we know, with every new opportunity, there is more opportunity for learning and to be better at what we're doing. And so we have a 90-day pilot at EMTC. Once we assess this, we will see what we need to do and where else we will need to go.
Before you leave, just, you indicated one statistic
Yes.
that just sort of jumped out for me, and I just like maybe a little more clarification on it. You talked about a 63% exchange rate. I'm just trying to get a sense of what are the implications of a 63% uniform exchange rate?
So DC Saunders will have some further conversation about the audit results itself. And again, when we audited the facilities, because we audited every facility, we wanted to look to see about how we were documenting, what were our shortcomings, if any, and to see how we can remedy. We looked to solution focus to find effective ways to be of service to our population. So DC Saunders.
Thank you.
So I just want to get into the details of the audit, if that's okay. So we sampled in this particular audit 100% of the housing areas. Typically, when you conduct an audit, you only do a representative sample. But in this instance, we decided to do 100% of the housing areas in all of the 8 commands department-wide, specifically focused on January 28th, the week of January 28th through February 3rd. That's a Sunday through Saturday for this particular assessment. So the audit involved reviewing logbook entries from all the housing areas, control stations in the closed box area of each facility. The staff took 5,231 photographs of each logbook that was available to them. Then we took that data, put it into Excel, and then cross-referenced all of those entries using the cameras to verify and validate that the logbook entries actually were representative and authentic. So overall, as AC Pay shared, 81% of the housing areas were serviced in compliance with the weekly linen exchange schedule. 63% of the housing areas were serviced in compliance with the biweekly uniform exchange schedule. So some of the recommendations that the audit team came up with was to retrain the closed box staff and some of the floor staff with respect to legibility of logbook entries. There were some logbook entries that could not be discerned. And then we also wanted to make sure that there was adequate supervision by area supervisors to ensure and improve service accountability. So we can share the audit with the board, and then there's some definitions in there, and so which we can get into if you have other questions about the audit. Are there any questions about the findings at this time?
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for sharing that. I know our Assistant Executive Director of Monitoring has been reaching out to get updates well before this meeting, so would be really appreciated if you could share the findings in writing.
Will do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So that concludes the Department of Corrections update. CHS updates, please. We now turn to CHS for updates on outposted therapeutic housing units.
Hi, Patsy Yang, Senior Vice President, Health and Hospitals for Correctional Health Services. I will be brief in my update. I just wanted to thank the department, in particular the Executive Director, for hearing us and issuing a corrected report on the BBJs, which included our feedback to you about the outposted units. Really appreciate that. The outposted units, as I think everyone remembers from certainly the most recent update that we gave you in March, which is when the mayor directed us to resume work on this project, was really conceived by CHS and approved in 2019 as a clinical innovation to improve the quality of care for people who are in custody. The update, the main update, the major exciting one since we last spoke is that Bellevue, which is anticipated for construction to be completed by spring, CHS has begun actually recruiting for those positions. So we've begun with the leadership, and by the end of this month, expect to post all our other positions for that in readiness to open. The work at Woodhull and NCB, which are the other two sites, is underway. Certainly the preparatory work is underway. I think I did talk about Woodhull last time. You might have actually seen some pictures that the decanting work, which is really emptying floors of other hospital services and programs, was completed last fall. The work on fortifying the roof for the recreation area is underway at Woodhull. And at North Central Bronx, pending final approvals, which we're hoping for by the end of next week. That work, again, for the decanting, which is, again, moving hospital services and programs out of those units into new spaces or renovated spaces, will begin as early as in a couple of weeks. And that's really it.
A question, Dr. Cohen.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So you began, I remember we talked several years ago about this project, about 3 years ago, or
2018 or so, 20, more than that,
more than
six.
More than that. So has the program changed that you considered, which you conceived of in terms of in 4 years ago, based upon any changes in the population demographics, epidemiology?
In concept, no. This is still intended for our patients who still, don't rise to the level of requiring acute admission to a hospital. Elmhurst and Bellevue remain operating and available for those purposes. But for people for whom we are currently caring on Rikers, but are, choosing to undergo sort of the logistics and ordeals and energy drains of going to hospital for specialty care. Also, that they'll benefit from being in a community therapeutic setting. So that's really it. Don't want to keep people longer.
Any questions, other questions? I see the only update you know that was highlighted here for CHS was outposted therapeutic housing units. Are there any other updates that you might have?
Not that I can think of at this point in time.
Okay, yeah, because I know there might be a longstanding question as to I guess the authority of the Board of Correction in CHS. And so at some point, I'd like to have that discussion with our staff and this board to determine what that line of accountability is.
Happy to engage in that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
In the executive order that the mayor signed this week, as he signs every 5 days, he said that the Department of Correction is unable to provide many services, including access to health care. Is that true?
We work with the department every day at every level for healthcare access for our patients, whether that's bringing people to clinic or ensuring a secure environment for our staff to be in the therapeutic units, or bringing people to Elmhurst or Bellevue for care.
Okay, well, maybe you could let Mayor Adams know that.
If there's no other questions, any further questions for CHS? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now turn to COBA to share staff concerns, comments regarding borough-based jails project.
Good afternoon. My name is Antoinette Anderson. I'm the third vice president of the Corrections Officers Benevolent Association. I'm here today to address two major concerns that our union has as it relates to the inherent flaws in the proposed borough-based jails that are set to open in 2029. But before we talk about 2029, I want to talk about right now. New York City, for the second time this summer, is immersed in a dangerous heat wave. One of our officers died recently while at work on the hottest days of the year. Let me remind this board, at one point, we shared our desire to address the dangerous temperatures in our jails. In fact, in a statement released back in July of 2019, the board said the board will recommend further heat mitigation efforts in advance of future heat emergencies this summer, including the potential hot weather this weekend. While there is room for DOC and CHS to plan for their responses to the next heat emergency, the ultimate problem is inadequate infrastructure. There are not enough air-conditioned housing areas for the number of people currently detained. Jail areas without air conditioning are too hot, and the mitigating responses are too limited despite concerned efforts by DOC leadership, correction officers, and other staff. People should not be detained or required to work under these conditions. The board urges the city to consider capital spending to expand air conditioning in jails now. This was you guys' words in 2019. Now we're in 2024 and we're having the same problem. We have the same urgent need to step up heat mitigation efforts, and yet this board has not made DOC provide meaningful answers on how it plans to address the safety of staff and PRCs alike. DOC should use the very same mobile outdoor cooling stations that the city uses in our communities to provide much needed relief to our members before another tragedy occurs. On the issue of borough-based jails, COPA continues to maintain that Rikers Island is the ideal location to build modern jails that can accommodate our current and projected inmate population. With over 6,300 inmates, how is DOC going to place those same PRCs into facilities that can only house 4,100 beds, as per the DOC's update plan? 70% of our PRCs are facing serious violent felony charges. That means they cannot be bailed out or released just because the board wants to lower the inmate population. Further, if there are billions of dollars in the capital budget to build new jails, why can't the department spend a fraction of that to improve the deficiencies in the jails right now? So I have a few comments or some things that were said earlier. The majority of Rikers Island does not have air conditioning. We already had one officer pass away running a yard activity. So you guys talk about the PRCs getting light and air while they're outside enjoying their recreation sessions. We're in a housing area that is hotter than what we're sitting in right now. So this temperature don't bother me because I've done that. This is what we're doing right now. 16 hours straight. This is what we are doing right now, every single tour. So my question is, what are we doing about that? Is it only important when a PRC passes away, or is it just important when an officer passes away? Because we have to go out and see those family members and those children, not anybody else. So when we talk about all these plans, can we please include the fact that the officers are not getting air conditioning either? The officers don't have fans, but we have industrialized fans for the PRCs. So let's talk about it. If we are circling the same hot air, what are we really doing? In EMTC, because I was covering EMTC, the majority of them areas do not have air conditioning. And as far as EMTC being a new admission facility, they should have some type of air because they come in with all type of issues and we cannot accommodate the heat sensitive medical issues, right? So now we have officers that have issues as well, and we come to work to do a job, and we go out sick, we're not doing our job, and when we come to work and we pass out, we're causing overtime for other people. Like, we gotta make it make sense.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
What did the department say when you asked them to provide these outside units? Because we don't have the capital funding, we don't.
But you guys asked about the PRCs having air conditioning, right?
No,
we're
talking
working.
about the units
Hold
being
on.
air conditioned.
We're talking about the same areas that we are working in. So when you ask about that, the same answers that you're getting is the same answers we're getting. So I also asked for night lights in EMTC because at night, when you turn out the lights, it's pitch dark. We can only see as far as our flashlight. When we're touring, we're using a flashlight. If we had night lights, it's easier to see the raise and fall of their chest, right? So we know that because we're a new admission facility, we should have night lights. So it's a lot of things that cannot be done because of electricity. They're having issues with the wiring. That's not our problem. DOC got to figure it out.
No, that's what I was asking. What's DOC's response?
The response is the same they're giving you guys. Money, capital projects. Because it's a capital project, it cannot be done. So everybody's saying, let's close Rikers, and we agree, we need better facilities, but the facilities that we're in right now, how can we help them?
I agree completely, since the department keeps putting the date for completing the borough jails off. So something has to be done now on Rikers Island to provide air conditioning.
Correct.
And I would hope the department would respond to this now and ask us and tell us if they have any plans to provide additional air conditioning for people who live and work in the jails. Deputy Commissioner, First Deputy Commissioner, you.
Good afternoon, Francis Torres, First Deputy Commissioner to the New York City Department of Correction. The safety of our staff members as well as PICs is paramount. When it comes to heating plans, anytime we develop any type of plan is dual. It includes our staff members as well as the PICs. We are presently looking at what it would require, at least for a specific building, to retrofit or to actually be able to provide air conditioning. It is a meeting that I have scheduled for this afternoon. I'll be in a better position to share any information with the board after the meeting.
Maybe you could provide us with a report of what you've decided at our next meeting.
You know that we always share information.
Well, we
be
haven't
more
been
than,
talking about the air.
yeah, we'll be more than happy to.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Direct questions, please, board members. Any other questions for Deputy Commissioner, First Deputy Commissioner? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
For COBA, I did have a question on really sad to hear about the death of a fellow officer. It was the cause of death determined to be heat related, or?
Well, they said, without disclosing too much, it was heart related, but he was out there doing the yard. He was running yard, and it was during the daytime, during the heat. So I'm gonna say this. In us working 17, 18-hour days, and we're working 4 days rotation, 2 days off, how much time do we really have to take care of our own personal needs or our families? When we get sick at work, we have issues with being seen. We have to be sent out either trans or EMS to get medical service. So we're not in a position where we can make every doctor's appointment because we have to go to work.
Just really wanted to clarify. I understand all the compounding concerns, but the current, if there's a direct correlation between the heat and
I can't answer that. I don't have his
Okay.
medical.
Okay, though.
But I can say that working in those conditions personally doesn't help the situation when it's hot as I don't know what outside, and we still have on a full uniform and a vest and still have to run services.
Yes, I understand, but we'll move on. Any other questions for COPA, or do you have additional statements that you'd like to make at this moment?
Ms. Skipper, you touched on Rosie's. You touched on the women facility.
Yes.
Okay. The women facility is special and unique in its own, and I agree with you. It is some things that need to be catered towards the female population. Currently in Rosie's, they have a nursery.
Mm-hmm.
They have different services catered just for the women, but we all know that Rosie's is not just being used for the females. The jail is divided up with the female population and the male population, right? Once again, when it comes to the female population, they really do have their own separate services and different needs. I agree with you that something needs to be done. Because once again, regardless of what facility we're talking about, everybody is eventually going to come back into the community.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to help everybody.
Mhm.
And it is hard. And one of the things that Mr. Ramos touched on was it's different when the female population going to be incarcerated. They do lose their support. It is not easy, and it's definitely not easy when they get out. So with that being said, in the position that you are in, along with the advocacy groups, something needs to be set up for them when they come out. Definitely, especially when it comes to the children, because we have a recycling door when the children are placed in foster care systems, and then they end up right in the jail system. When it comes to us being realistic about this population and saying about the borough-based jail, it is no way in the world that DOC is going to be able to accommodate that unless we letting everybody out. Our population is going up every single day. Now, once again, everything that happens with DOC, we get blamed. All we do is hold them. So I think that some of the advocacy groups and as well as BOC need to look at the court system because we're just holding them. Do you actually think we want all the population that we want? No, we do not. But we don't control that. We work in an environment and we come to do a job, but everything falls on the correction officer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If no further questions. At this, we'll hear comments from the public. Jasmine will call names of those who signed up to speak.
The first person is Jay Adidin.
Hello, my name is Jay Edidin. I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Women's Community Justice Association, and I'm speaking today on behalf of...
Could you
sorry.
speak into the microphone? I can't.
Sorry about that. Here, me. My name is Jay Edidin. I am the Director of Advocacy at the Women's Community Justice Association, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Beyond Rosie's campaign. And I'm here to speak on two fronts: the lack of access to safe gender-aligned housing for incarcerated trans people and the Adams administration's plans to more than triple the beds for women and gender-expansive people at the upcoming Queensboro jail from the agreed-upon number of 126 to 450. To the first, it has been nearly 2 years since the task force on issues faced by TGNC NBI people in custody released its final report, which, among other things, highlighted the urgent need for safe gender-aligned housing. On June 21st, the Daily News reported on a trans woman in men's housing who was forced to choose between a homemade ice pick and sexual assault. This is unacceptable. DOC knows and has known for years that transgender detainees, trans women in particular, are at vastly heightened risk of sexual violence when housed with men, and yet continue to treat trans detainees as the only population for whom access to gender-aligned housing is a reward rather than a basic right. This board needs to demand accountability for the consistent misassignment of housing, lack of adequate appeal, and ignorance or misuse of PREA. To the second point, as you know, the Adams administration plans for the upcoming Queensboro jail more than triple the agreed upon number of beds for women and gender-expansive people from 126 to 450. Once again, this is inhumane, it's unnecessary, and it's indefensible. 80% of the women and gender-expansive people currently housed at RMSC have a mental health concern. 70% are primary caregivers. Either of those factors in and of itself should be a mandate to diversion and decarceration. The administration's plan to triple the number of women and gender-expansive people in the city that the city cages speaks to an absolute disregard for the lives and dignity not only of people incarcerated, but of their families and communities. Between the Path to 100 report and the successful reduction of the jail population at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the city has both practical steps and proof of concept for mass decarceration. That it is not happening would be ridiculous were the human cost not so high. To that end, I urge this board to prioritize decarceration and apply pressure where possible to both the Adams administration and DOC to reduce the city's jail population, not to plan to increase it with the shift to the borough jails, and to preserve and promote alternatives to incarceration and detention. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Darren Mack. And the speaker after that is Dylan Erickson. So if you could sit in the front row just to speed up the transition.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Darren Mack. I'm a co-director at Freedom Agenda and one of the organizations leading the campaign to close Rikers, and I'm also a member of the Jails Action Coalition. I'm grateful that the board dedicated so much of today's agenda to topics that are critical to closing Rikers, including the borough-based facilities, the implementation of Local Law 16, 2021, and the outpost of therapeutic housing units. Regarding the borough-based jails, I want to thank the board for urging DOC to expand use of the 6A program to reduce the number of people serving city sentences. This portion of the jail population has increased nearly fourfold since January 2022, from 142 people to 560 people. We urge you to continue pressing the department to expand use of this program. It is a critical way to get people out of the dangerous conditions on Rikers, to improve conditions for people who remain in custody by reducing the number of people DOC is responsible for, and to support implementation of the plan to close Rikers. Using 6A could save lives. We thank the Board of Correction for again highlighting the need to expand true outdoor space in the Brooklyn Jail's design, in addition to any open air recreational spaces or the housing units. The administration has designed options it could and should explore to create sufficient outdoor space and remain in compliance with the board's minimum standards, including a redesign of the roof facility and a waiver of green roof requirements to expand rooftop recreation space for people in custody. We also thank the Board of Corrections for highlighting the urgency of completing the borough-based jails by August 31st, 2027, when the jails on Rikers are legally required to close. The Queens and Bronx jail contracts do not demonstrate that the city is moving with urgency. In Queens, for example, they don't plan to complete the design until April 2027 and don't plan to begin to dig foundations until then. It seems that the administration needs to be reminded that this is not just any construction project. It's one where lives hang in the balance and which is necessary for the city to comply with the law. In addition, Local Law 16 of 2021 requires the city to transfer all vacant land and structures from DOC to DCAS every 6 months. The Adams administration has missed 5 of these transfer deadlines. DOC can and should transfer AMKC and set up an agreement with DCAS to continue to use the kitchen if that's necessary. The board should continue to press DOC to reduce the jail population and to transfer vacant land and structures in alignment with the requirement for them to vacate Rikers Island by August 31st, 2027. Finally, the development of the therapeutic housing units is a positive step, but their completion has repeatedly been delayed. This administration has continued to issue emergency executive orders to suspend minimum standards, but doesn't seem willing to pursue emergency measures to expedite the completion of these units. With the design for the Bellevue units completed and approved by SCOC, there should be opportunities to expedite the other units using similar designs and complete Woodhall and North Central Bronx units much sooner than 2027. Given that these units will house people in DOC custody with the most acute medical needs, any delay jeopardizes their health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan Erickson, and then after Mr. Erickson is Claire Rothschild.
Good afternoon. My name is Dylan Erickson, and I'm a law student and a volunteer with the Urban Justice Center. I'm here today with Claire Rothschild, who will speak after me. And together we're going to use our combined time to share testimony from an individual currently held in a New York City correctional facility. This testimony describes an experience in restrictive housing that occurred before the new final rules were passed last month. And we're sharing this testimony now to emphasize the importance of DOC complying with the new restrictive housing rules when they take effect. Here is the testimony. I was born in Harlem to a loving family. It was a supportive, family-oriented community where people looked out for each other and made sure kids were on the right track. To attend a better high school, I moved to New Jersey to live with my godmother, who prioritized my education and made sure I had everything I needed. I loved my life in New Jersey. I was popular in school and had a diverse group of friends who I still keep in touch with today. I was a student athlete and got good grades. I would never have thought that I would be here talking with you about this today. I was arrested in early 2023 and was put into the box about a week after I was arrested for a fight and assault I had nothing to do with. My hearing process didn't seem fair. I was served a ticket 16 days after the alleged incident, despite the 24-hour deadline to receive notice of an infraction, and wasn't even told what my infraction was until the date of the hearing. I attended my hearing alone without representation. At my hearing, I asked them to check video of the incident and talk to witnesses that would corroborate that I was not involved. They told me they would look into the video and witnesses, but I never got any confirmation that they did. Instead, I just got a notice that I had been found guilty. I knew this was unjust and used the law library app on my tablet to research guidelines for enhanced supervision housing. I wrote 14 pages pointing out everything wrong with my hearing and sent copies to jail officials and the court. None of that seemed to matter. My time in the box was the worst time I've spent at Rikers. I spent pretty much all day, every day, locked in my cell. I tried to just sleep the time away, but the mattress was more like a paper-thin mat. It even had a tag on it that said it wasn't meant to be used as a sleeping foundation. I'm still struggling with back pain as a result. Even if you could get comfortable, other people in the box would bang, kick, and yell all night long, which was unnerving and made it even harder to get any sleep. Other people would set fires just to get any kind of attention, but there were no sprinklers in the cells, so my cell would be filled with smoke for hours, and it was sometimes hard to breathe. We've talked a lot about the heat today, but I think that compounded with a cell filled with smoke is just unimaginable to many of us sitting in the room. I did what I could to get through the days. I spoke to my family every chance I got and spent my days reading the books they sent me. There was a TV outside of my cell, but I would have to stand at my cell door to watch through the bars. Most of the interaction I got in the box was speaking to my neighbor through the vent. And seeing my time is almost up, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire Rothschild. And then after that is Chaplain Dr. Victoria A. Phillips.
Good afternoon. As Dylan mentioned, I'm Claire Rothschild, and I'm going to pick up the testimony where he left off. The small amount of time I did get to spend outside of the cell each morning, I was cuffed and shackled to a chair with a gate around me, so even outside my cell, I felt like I was in a cage. Even though I could barely have anything in my cell, they still strip searched me every single time I left. It happened no matter what, even if it was just to be shackled to a chair. I hated the strip searches, so even when I had the option to leave the cell, it just didn't seem worth it to endure another search. I am lucky to have a supportive family and friends, but having any visitors in the box was hard. Only 2 visitors are allowed on the floor at once, so visiting takes a long time. One of my visitors kept being denied access because of an expired ID, which wasn't even actually expired. I sometimes wasn't even brought to televisits with my attorney and often had trouble receiving my mail, both social and legal. I tried filing grievances, but none of those went anywhere. All of this made me feel more isolated. I was in the box for a little less than 2 months, far more than 30 days. No person should have to live in the conditions in the box. The cells aren't cleaned between occupants, so they are dirty and unsanitary. When I first got there, I kept asking for something to clean my cell, but nothing was done. In the end, I had to rip up my own towel, buy shampoo from the commissary, and scrub the cell myself to try and get it clean. I tried my best, but it was basically pointless. Even the showers were disgusting, with mildew growing everywhere. How are we supposed to clean ourselves when the showers aren't even clean? I ended up getting ringworm from the unhygienic conditions. I asked to see medical for almost 3 weeks before I was finally taken, and even then the doctor gave me the wrong cream. I went to the barbershop to get alcohol pads, and now whenever I start to get a rash, I just try to clean it with that. My mental health really suffered from my time in the box. Being held in a cage all day, every day, by myself made me depressed, and the conditions made it even worse. I kept asking to talk to a counselor or a psychologist, but it kept getting delayed. When someone finally came to meet me, they wanted me to talk to them right there in the hallway. I didn't want to talk where everyone, including the officers, could hear me, so I asked to go to a clinic. No one ever followed up with me, and I never got to go. I never received any more mental health care after that. I am anxious and constantly on edge. Rikers as a whole is really hard to live through, but the solitary confinement system is unsafe, inhumane, and unconstitutional. No one should have to endure it, especially people who are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. I just also want to note that we have spoken a lot about the heat today, but the people in the prisons are suffering through much worse temperatures all the time, and we only have to endure it for a few hours. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. V. And then Michael Klinger.
Peace and blessings, everyone. I'm Chaplain Dr. Victoria A. Phillips, longstanding Jails Action Coalition member. And today I'm not speaking for anybody but for myself because I got some things I really want to say. So I'm happy that the heat was brought up because that was on the top of my notes, and ED mentioned that outdoor 85, the minimum standards and stuff and around the heat and when the water kicks in and all of that. But I want to say working on the island and volunteering on the island almost 2 decades in different capacities, I know for a fact. When's the last time you urinated on yourself? Any one of you? Because that's what it feels like standing in the day room in Rikers Island many times when the sweat is running down your legs. It literally feels as if you're urinating on yourself because of the lack of air. And I also want to raise the point around them big black fans, them industrial fans. A lot of times they don't even work. And if they are working, they're kicking around dirty air. So really walk the corridors. You all have access as board members. Walk the corridors and please do your job. Unfortunately, I really hate when I have to do this on the record. Oh, but before I go into that, I want to say, and what's the largest kitchen other than AMKC on the island? Go ahead and close AMKC, give it back to the people, and work from fixing the food from another facility. But years ago, I had to do this, and unfortunately, sometimes us kinfolk have to hold each other accountable because nobody else in position of power or leadership will do so. So, Chair, just like I had to speak to Jennifer Jones Austin before, I'm going to direct my testimony to you. Last year, you were a part of trying to pull dictatorship. The fact that you would even want the idea of saying that only 3 people could speak at public comment is asinine to me. And the city agency that's oversight board that's seeing a city agency that has more than 3 deaths in a year, to me is ridiculous for a board member of the oversight to ever mention. Sometimes you even say something like, I don't get paid for this. She used to say stuff like that. I don't get paid for a lot of the stuff I do either around this work, but I do it because I'm committed to saving lives, whether on the officer side or the detainee side. And that's what I want to talk to you about leadership, because so often I find myself in this city having to advocate for people I probably don't even like. But I do it because we're on domestic soil. I do it because my mother's buried in a military cemetery, not for the illusion of freedom and justice for all, but for all of us to have that. And even someone that's incarcerated is worthy of human rights, is worthy of respect, and is worthy of bare minimums like water. How many times does water come around for the tour? When I was floating through the island, them brown buckets sometimes were empty for tours. So are y'all actually making sure that these things are really being handed out? Because I remember people putting milks in the toilet to keep it cool. As a brain surgery survivor, so often I've even had judges, clerks tell me, oh, you need to speak about your disability. I'll be finished in 30 seconds. And I just want to say, so often disabilities aren't seen, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be respected or valued. And if we're going to make changes, because this board has, I'm about to finish, this board has made a lot of changes, and it hasn't been because of your leadership, it's been because of the pushing to your leadership to do what's right. And so as we move forward, I ask you, and if you don't need help, I'm willing to help you, understand how you have to work with every member of this board. And the same way you were appointed is the same way you could be removed. Peace and blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for the record, since I was personally called out, you can have a seat. I'm responding to your comments, not to you. I never stated anything about not being paid for this job. I do this job because it's a service that must be done.
So after Michael Klinger is Edwin Hernandez.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Klinger. I'm a jail services attorney with Brooklyn Defender Services, and thank you for the opportunity to...
Say that again?
My name is Michael Klinger. I'm a jail services attorney with Brooklyn Defender Services, and thank you for the opportunity to provide some comment today. First, we are grateful to the board and its staff for posting the weekly heat monitoring on the online dashboard. In light of the extreme heat that the city is experiencing this summer and today, we are concerned about our clients in the jails, many of whom are designated already by the department as heat sensitive. We suggest here a few ways in which the board's monitoring could be made a little more useful than it already is. First, reporting could include more details, such as which housing unit was measured and whether the temperature was taken in the day room or in a sampling of cells or elsewhere. Temperatures may vary from a day room to a closed cell, and although corridors or even day rooms may be cooled or have adequate fans, often we hear from clients that their cells, where they may be locked in with no functioning windows and no way to open even the meal slot on their door, are not cooled and may become dangerously hot. During any period of lock-in, the temperatures that matter most to the people in the department's custody are the temperatures in the cells and dormitories. And the current reporting does not clarify when or whether those temperatures are being monitored. Additionally, although the report implies that when a given reading exceeds a threshold temperature, it may still be compliant with policy based on provision of adequate fans or ice, it doesn't specify how many fans, where they're placed, whether they're fixed or able to oscillate, or any other level of detail that may clarify how they provide relief, or even whether they work. Taken together with our first suggestion to specify the location within the facility, this level of detail would help us to better understand the conditions in which our clients are actually being held. Next, we do wish to thank the board for sharing its recent progress report on the borough-based jails and for highlighting the need for access to outdoor recreation spaces, which we emphatically support. In addition, BDS has raised numerous other concerns with the Public Design Commission, most critically including increases in the general population bed counts, which have come at the cost of decreases in therapeutic beds and mental health unit capacity. We urge the board to monitor those concerns as well and to work with all stakeholders to decrease the jail population. And finally, we wish to draw the board's attention to a recent breakdown in the department's video teleconferencing program. Specifically, since about June 27th, we have observed a significant breakdown based on two issues. First, an apparent failure of the scheduling system such that even confirmed and scheduled appointments are not being consistently shared with department staff, so that when we show up virtually, our clients are not reliably produced for even those scheduled conferences. Second, and I'm almost done, even when people are produced to their scheduled conferences, there's been a notable increase in the frequency of technological problems where there's no audio or no video or both. We've raised these concerns to the department staff, including at the office that handles scheduling, and we've communicated with DOC's legal department. We just want to make sure you're also aware because this impacts our clients' right of access to legal counsel and it touches on the minimum standards. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Edwin Hernandez, and then Jennifer Parrish. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see Edwin Hernandez, so Jennifer Parrish.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Parrish. I'm the Director of Criminal Justice Advocacy at the Urban Justice Center Mental Health Project and a member of the Jails Action Coalition and the Halt Solitary campaign. First, I want to thank this board for adopting rules to implement Local Law 42, which will end the use of solitary confinement in New York City jails. We ask that you do everything in your power to make sure that the department complies with this law when it goes into effect on July 28th. Now turning to the board's borough-based jails progress report. We appreciate the board's report, which brings to light several concerning developments. It is alarming that the projected capacity of these jails is 26% higher than planned. The plan to close Rikers Island was intended not only to end the barbaric use of that penal colony, but also and the harms that it inflicts on people, but also to reduce incarceration in New York City. The administration is plainly failing in this important piece of the plan. One portion of the jail population, which should be the focus of decarceration efforts, are individuals with mental health and physical disabilities. Yet the administration has not put forth any initiative to divert this population from incarceration. In fact, the number of people diagnosed with serious mental illness has increased since the mayor took office. Having dedicated therapeutic housing units in the borough-based jails is certainly important, and we support that. But actually creating alternatives to incarceration, which include emergency housing to divert people with significant mental health challenges from jails, is far more beneficial. The board's report also highlights the elimination of outdoor recreation in the new jails, and that's completely unacceptable. The board's minimum standard requiring that incarcerated individuals have access to outdoor recreation has been in place since 1978. Access to fresh air and sunlight was no more important back then than it is today. Outdoor exercise contributes to improved health and mental health, and for the borough-based jails to actually be fairer, safer, and more humane, which the city claims they'll be, they must provide access to outdoor recreation. We appreciate that the board has expressed its concerns that the recreation areas are not outdoors and has attempted to work with DOC and DDC to remedy the problem. But with these agencies now taking the position that the recreation areas in the housing units comply with the definition of outdoor recreation, this board must take all necessary actions, including litigation, to prevent the city from constructing jails with designs that violate the minimum standards. The purpose of the minimum standards is to ensure that incarcerated individuals' basic human needs are met. It's incumbent upon this board to do everything in its power to make sure that the jails of the future comply with this minimal level of treatment. And the board needs to act quickly, given that DDC reported today that from its perspective, the design for the jails is completed. Hearing the description of the rec areas, it's clear that DDC's assertion that the area is outdoor is just as faulty as DOC's assertion that a cage at NYC is out of cell time. Please do not accept their assurances and take action on this issue before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Schneiderman.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Schneiderman, and I'm a correction specialist at New York County Defender Services. I want to begin by thanking the board for launching its heat monitoring dashboard, while also noting that it is far from being able to track the heat on Rikers Island in real time. Last week, I met with 2 clients housed in different units of GRVC. One relayed that he was freezing cold because the air conditioning was blasting nonstop, while the other reported that no one in his unit can sleep at night because of the extreme heat. Without a tracking system that indicates the temperature in each housing unit of each facility, rather than the facility overall, the dashboard is essentially useless. I also want to note that the board has found the Department of Correction to be in compliance with heat regulations, even when just yesterday the temperature recorded inside of OBCC reached 95 degrees. A lot of people have been commenting on the heat in this room right now, and I would guess that the temperature is below the 85-degree standard currently in place on the island. Regardless of the provision of ice or fans required when temperatures rise above 85 degrees, the current standards are not sufficient to keep people safe. The board's publicization of extreme heat on Rikers Island points to the fact that as the city delays and delays and delays its plan to close Rikers, every day, thousands of people are suffering, getting sick, and at risk of losing their lives on the island. Rikers Island must close. We thank the board for its commitment to closing Rikers and for its July report on the borough-based jails plan. As part of this commitment, we urge the board to investigate the department's staffing plan. It is unclear to me why the department continues to staff AMKC and VCBC, neither of which have housed incarcerated people for nearly a year, especially as the department continues to claim that they are in a state of emergency due to a lack of staff. The food can be prepared elsewhere. It seems that fully closing AMKC and VCBC and transferring any staff there to other facilities would help ensure that facilities that actually house incarcerated people are fully staffed so that the department can once again comply with the board's minimum standards while also reducing reliance on the island to pave the way for its closure. Any advocacy the board is able to provide around this issue would be immensely helpful. I also want to note that while the future completion of CHS's therapeutic outposted units will be helpful to closing Rikers, people with mental health diagnoses who are currently forced to live on Rikers Island do not have access to the level of care that they require. To meaningfully reduce the jail population and comply with the Close Rikers plan, those who need it and want it must have access to treatment, not jail. Incarceration should not be a requirement for receiving mental health care in the most well-funded city in the world. And I know I'm about to run out of time, but lastly, I want to acknowledge the board's discussion on its bylaws. The mission and purpose of the Board of Correction is to ensure that the Department of Correction is compliant with minimum standards by monitoring the conditions inside city jails. All of us advocates in the room recall Chair Sampson's attempt to limit public comment last year. If the board is unable to hear from the public, including currently and formerly incarcerated people, advocates, and attorneys, it will be unable to fulfill its mission and purpose. We strongly oppose any attempt to increase the powers of the board chair such that they amount to authoritarian rule. Over the years, this board has made accomplishments because it worked with the public. It was the urging of advocates that led to the board's report on the April 2023 NYC fire, reporting that is now helping those harmed seek legal action. The strength of the rules passed in response to Local Law 42 is a testament to collaboration. Countless agenda items and areas of research have been the focus of the board because of our public comment on them. July 19th is my last day with New York County Defender Services, and that is what is likely my final board meeting for the foreseeable future. I strongly urge this board to expand upon this collaboration rather than destroy it. The lives of incarcerated New Yorkers depend upon it. Thank you for this and every opportunity to testify.
Thank you. We're going to move to remote comments. If you're on remotely, you'll hear some instructions on how to alert us.
The first speaker is going to be Lauren from Legal Aid Society. Are you on, Lauren? Can you hear us? Lauren?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Lauren Stevens-Davidowitz is our first speaker.
Okay, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. My background is usually blurred, but I'm Lauren Stevens-Davidowitz, a staff attorney at Legal Aid's Prisoners' Rights Project. To reiterate what's come up a lot today, extreme heat poses grave danger to people in custody. Recent research puts the risk into numbers. Between 2001 and 2019, a 10-degree increase above the mean summer temperature resulted in a 4.9% increase in excess deaths in jails and prisons nationwide. Legal Aid commends the board for creating its heat monitoring dashboard, but because of the heat's risks and DOC's prior conduct, we asked the board to do even more this summer. I'm not going to reiterate what Michael Klinger and Rachel Schneiderman said. I agree with all of their requests. I'd also add that because extreme heat can last well into September, the board should expand its monitoring past Labor Day. I do want to ask the board to vigilantly monitor DOC's compliance with its high heat protocols. Protocols that we assert and common sense dictates are woefully inadequate, but nonetheless better than nothing. Complaints we've received from people in custody, coupled with DOC records from 2021 and 2022, indicate that DOC does not comply with its own protocols. DOC has fought our efforts to get 2023 records, so I cannot yet address last summer. During a June 2021 heat wave, DOC admitted that there was no evidence that it delivered ice to 2 ESH housing units. During an 8-day heat wave in July 2022, DOC could produce no evidence that ice was distributed to anyone in ESH. During that same heat wave, it offered no proof that each housing unit had an operable cool shower, which is, by the way, consistent with a past DOC General Counsel's statement that all showers are set to a lukewarm temperature and can't be adjusted. Moreover, this summer, the Prisoners' Rights Project's hotline has received calls from several heat-sensitive individuals complaining that they are not in heat-sensitive housing. Lastly, in its most recent report, the monitor in our class action, Benjamin, which concerns environmental conditions at Rikers, found that hundreds of windows designed to be opened were inoperable and had been over the course of months. In view of these violations, we asked the board to confirm that each housing area without AC has a cool shower, to examine the frequency, quantity, and method by which ice is distributed, monitor the temperature in housing areas more regularly, ensure that heat-sensitive individuals are housed appropriately, and generally to engage in efforts to protect people at Rikers from extreme heat dangers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Eileen Mayer.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, Eileen, you can.
Okay,
you can go ahead.
I didn't know if I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Marr. I'm a civil rights union leader from Vocal, New York, a social worker, and a survivor of the earthly hell that is Rikers Island, where I spent over 427 days. Sadly, the New York City Department of Corrections is a lost cause. Month after month and now year after year, my fellow advocates and I have explained in detail what must be done to end the madness, corruption, and torture that has come to define Rikers and the New York City DOC as a whole, and not only remedy the aforementioned issues, but also importantly begin and expedite the process of closing Rikers for good as per the law that New York City passed years ago. There is no going back. Legally, Rikers must close by 2027. So rather than continuing to bicker and fight amongst ourselves, not only the BOC, but all advocating organizations and networks, we must concentrate on getting the following done. Stop increasing COs and other DOC staff. Instead, increase community programs such as violence interrupters, mental health, and physical health services in all communities, but more so in the underserved communities and neighborhoods. Improve educational programs and end the cuts to preschool for all in the library system. Increase domestic violence services and shelters by like 1,000%. Implement alternatives to incarceration programs and improve and increase real reentry programs for returning citizens. And increase and improve substance abuse treatment programs, including medically assisted substance disorder treatment across all 5 boroughs. Begin real programming in the existing detainment facilities, psychiatric, medical, substance disorder, educational, and employment programs and services, and be consistent. Truly end the use of solitary confinement in all its forms and under any and all name, including the medieval torture chairs the DOC has grown so fond of. Force DOC to follow the years-old state law and recent city law banning the practice, a practice that has been deemed as torture and unnecessary by the American Medical Association and the Geneva Convention. Hold any and all correction officers and DOC staff accountable when they break the laws and use any and all forms of solitary confinement, as well as when they traffic in weapons, narcotics, and other contraband, because no one believes their fantasy stories that blame said trafficking on visitors and the mail. Hold them accountable when the COs and DOC staff rape, murder, and assault detainees. Hold them accountable for any and all participation in medical and physical neglect, such as not escorting detainees to insulin and other medical appointments, or when they not only fail to feed detainees, but when they withhold toilet paper and women's hygiene products. So if that means allowing a federal monitor to take over, then so be it. Because for over a century, the DOC has proven that they are incapable of doing so in a productive and positive manner. And yes, the BOC must get the cameras back. DOC should not and cannot be the only ones privy to them. It's absurd. They cannot and should not be policing themselves. Rikers Island must close sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Arlene.
you. Our next speaker is Cleo Navek Kivi Callanan. I apologize.
All right, Cleo, you're up now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. My name is Cleo Nevakivi Callanan.
My colleague Toella Pliakis and I are legal interns at the Urban Justice Center's Mental Health Project. We will be combining our time to read testimony from an individual who's currently incarcerated. Before we begin, we want to emphasize the importance of ensuring that the Department of Correction complies with Local Law 42 going into effect this month, as well as the Board of Corrections rules. These rules are imperative to protect the rights of incarcerated people, including the individual whose testimony we will be reading today. It reads as follows. I'm in my 30s and incarcerated in the restrictive housing unit at Otis Bantam Correctional Center on Rikers Island. I also spent several months in solitary confinement in the Resh unit at RNDC. And I want the world to know what the Department of Correction is doing to people in New York's jails. I am alone here. The Department of Correction cut off my access to visits and packages months ago, after staff blamed me for contraband that belonged to someone else and then physically attacked me. I have not been allowed to see anyone since then. My partner and my children have not been able to visit me in months, so I haven't been able to see them or hold them. And it's been hard to communicate with my family via telephone because a floor of about 21 people has to share 3 phones. I'm a family-oriented man. I miss the life that we had together. We would go for walks with my dogs and my young son by the river, watching the squirrels and enjoying the view, the fresh air, and the sun. In solitary confinement, there's no fresh air. There's no sun. We are put in filthy, tiny cells alone, stuck breathing in fumes from people setting fires in their cells to get staff to respond to their concerns. They treat us like animals in here. We are strip searched everywhere we go. It is often either too cold or too hot. Portion sizes are tiny, and we sometimes receive only 2 meals a day, leaving me hungry. The intake process to get into solitary is awful. I spent 48 hours alone in a cell with no water. The toilets and sinks were cut off. I didn't receive a blanket, and the mattress was thin, like a workout mat. It was so cold that I watched my fingertips turn purple. Staff ignored me when I asked for food at intake, even though I was hungry. I will yield my time to Toella, who will continue the testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Toella Pliakis.
All right, Toella, your time is going to start soon. Can you hear me? Are you good? Toella?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, you're good now. Thank you.
Yes.
And can you see me? Not yet.
Not yet. We can hear you. We can't see you.
I think there might just be an issue with my camera. I might just have to testify without video.
Okay.
That's all right.
That's okay.
Thank you. I'll be continuing the testimony that Cleo started. Once, and the continuation reads as follows. Once I was put in solitary in what's called level 1, I had to spend 21 hours a day alone in a tiny cell with nothing to do but listen to my thoughts and the sounds of people banging and screaming in their cells. It was hard to speak to my family because calls were limited, and I was told to get off quickly by staff. We were supposed to receive recreational exercise time, but we never received it. Instead, I was put in a small dog cage where all I could do was move around in circles alone. I was even brought to the shower in handcuffs. Level 2 is supposed to be less restrictive, but it's even worse than level 1. All of us on the unit share 4 tiny showers, and there are ceramic scalpels everywhere that correctional officers smuggle in and sell to incarcerated people. I saw someone get slashed in the neck down to the vein in front of me, and I wear a towel around my neck now to protect myself in case I get attacked. I'm not safe here. I feel like I am slowly dying. Every issue in my life has become worse. I experience severe pain because of cardiovascular issues for which I have requested medical treatment at Rikers, but received no response. My mental health has also worsened because of my experiences in the criminal system. I've developed PTSD, and I struggle with OCD related to cleanliness, which is hard in a space that is filthy and hard to disinfect. I've only been able to speak to a mental health professional once after I complained to 311, and I had to spend hours in cuffs waiting to speak to them. Now I receive some kind of medication for my mental health, but nobody has told me what I'm taking. I have requested a comprehensive mental health evaluation but have not received one. Everything about Rikers is either confusing, misleading, or a straight out lie. I have placed over 50 grievances about the conditions on Rikers Island with no response. Nobody is helping us, and they're not following the legal standards they're supposed to follow to keep us safe. The jail system in New York needs serious change. All jails must stop being inhumane to our families and us detainees. Instead of restrictive housing, there should be drug and self-help programs that involve our families so that we can see them and get their support. It's horrible here, and I want people to hear my story so that this doesn't keep happening to others. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Danielle Gerard.
Good afternoon, Danielle. You are good to go whenever you're ready. Thank you. Hey, Danielle, can you start from the beginning and please unmute yourself? Thank you so much.
Chair and members of the Board of Correction, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Danielle Gerard. I'm a senior staff attorney at Children's Rights and a member of the Jails Action Coalition. To say that we are disappointed by the delay in construction of the borough-based jails is a huge understatement. That the capacity for the new jails is more than originally planned is also a huge disappointment. To counter this, and although cuts to alternatives to incarceration were restored in the budget, this city needs many more such programs. That the justice-involved supportive housing program had to be funded by council discretionary funding is crazy. Every program that can serve as an alternative to going to jail requires much more robust funding. Every program that can provide programming, education, mental health services, and recreation while young adults and others are incarcerated should be adequately funded and provided. We refer you to our June 12 comment, The Dangers of Isolation for Young Adults in DOC Custody, to the board for more information about the importance of these services. Echoing the testimony of Darren Mack, Jennifer Parrish, and others, we call on the Board of Correction to make decarceration a priority, given the extreme heat, and especially in the face of yet another death. We really need you, the board, to stand up for decarceration, or the mayor will continue to rely on increasing numbers of incarcerated persons to further slow walk the construction of the borough-based jails. If the Empire State Building was built in 18 months, surely we can get the borough-based jails built over the next 3 years to comply with the August 2027 legally mandated deadline. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Danielle.
That concludes public comments. Go to Board Member Hoskins, who has wants to make a resolution regarding committees.
First, thank you for taking the time. First, I want to start by on an apology to the chair, my fellow board members, and the public. I believe the apology needs to be as public as the disrespect was, and I was out of character. So I apologize to all before I make this next move. In looking at the bylaws, I realized that we are out of compliance in some of our committees. So I wanted to make a motion to reconstruct a couple of our committees. And the part of the bylaws that we are out of line with is that committee members should have the expertise to serve on that committee. So I asked staff to write up a resolution which will kind of modify our current committees to ensure individuals with the expertise are sitting on a committee. The death committee, I am making a motion that we revise it with Dr. Cohen, having a medical doctor, Dr. Cohen being the chair, Mr. Ramos and Jude being the death committee. I am asking that we revise the women's committee with Vice Chair Skipper being the chair and Ms. Pitts and myself at this time. And then Programs Committee, revising it that Ms. Pitts continues to be chair, Felipe, and adding Jude. That actually brings us to not being out of compliance, that 3 members are on standing committees. The expertise is aligned with the committees, and I'll ask the staff to read the resolution. that I asked to draw up.
Yes, I asked that perhaps your resolution be tabled to the committee you recommended earlier, has a time to meet, because I believe committees in that authorization is under review as well. So I don't want us to respectfully get ahead of the committee's review that's reviewing the bylaws.
The bylaws are in effect right now.
Then if that's the case, I may have to, bring up the resolution on the bylaws once again. It's fascinating how a board member can get more from staff than the chair. It's just fascinating. And I must make public comment to that.
Before I read this, I'll just say that any board member that requests anything of staff, we willingly are here to support all board members, including the chair. So I'll read this resolution. It says, whereas Article 6 of the board's rules of procedure, as amended on June 5th, 2023, sets forth that the board shall establish committees as it deems necessary, and that the board shall appoint members of each committee, taking into account the preferences and expertise of board members, and shall designate one committee member as chair. Whereas Article 6 of the board's rules of procedure, as amended on June 5th, 2023, further establishes that any board member may propose the establishment of a committee, and no board member may simultaneously serve on more than 2 committees. Whereas the board established the Committee on Deaths, Near Deaths, and Serious Injuries, comprised of Committee Chair Joseph Ramos, Board Chair Dwayne Sampson ex officio, and Board Member Jacqueline Pitts. The Committee on Women in City Jails, comprised of Committee Chair Jacqueline Pitts, Board Chair Dwayne Sampson ex officio, and Board Member Deanna Hoskins. And the Committee on Programs and Education, comprised of Interim Committee Chair Jacqueline Pitts, Board Chair Dwayne Sampson ex officio, Board Member Felipe Franco, and Board Member Joseph Ramos. Whereas due to board member departures and 2023 amendments to the board's rules of procedure, the composition of the committees must be modified to comply with the rules of procedure and to fill existing vacancies in current committees while taking into account the preferences and expertise of board members. Now therefore be it resolved that the board's Committee on Deaths, Near Deaths, and Serious Injuries will be chaired by Board Member Dr. Robert Cohen and comprised of Board Chair Dwayne Sampson ex officio, Board Member Joseph Ramos, and Board Member Jude Torchinad. And it is further resolved that the board's Committee on Women in City Jails will be chaired by Board Vice Chair Helen Skipper and comprised of Board Chair Dwayne Sampson ex officio, Board Member Jacqueline Pitts, and Board Member Honorable Barry Cozier. And it is further resolved that the board's Committee on Programs and Education will be chaired by Board Member Jacqueline Pitts and comprised of Board Chair Dwayne Sampson ex officio, Board Member Felipe Franco, and Board Member Jude Torchinad. And it is further and finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be posted conspicuously on the board's website.
Second. I second. I second the resolution.
A motion has been moved and duly seconded. We're just going to take a vote. And all those in favor say aye.
Can we do a roll call vote?
All opposed?
We have a roll call vote, please, Chair.
There will not be a roll call vote. It's not necessary.
Of Robert's rule of law. I will do a vote, I'll vote to. I'm going to table this, next. I'm sure that all members have changed. Okay, we do a vote, we can make that motion to table it after the vote.
Okay, I'm going to say no too, but I do want to go on record that I think Ms. Skipper would be an excellent chair for the Women's Committee. I'm only the chair of 2 committees because I'm a team player, so I have no problem in giving up one of the committees. But I feel like I feel blindsided, so I think we should table it, and I'm going to say no at this time.
I did it, Ms. Pitts request.
I support the resolution. The board chair removed me from any committee positions about a year ago, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve on the committee.
Should be tabled. I vote yes.
I vote yes.
I vote no, that it be tabled.
So the resolution will be tabled to the next meeting, but it's going to.
Oh, let me clarify, okay, please? Okay, no, the resolution as it stands has failed because the majority was no. You can bring up another resolution at some point to address this at the next meeting if you like. But I still feel, like I said in the beginning of my discussions before you read the resolution, I think that this will be resolved in the committee which Vice Chair Skipper chairs, and Board Member Corsair and Cohen, as that resolution has passed, because that is a bylaws concerning issue and committees are part of the bylaws.
So the motion is, since that one failed, the motion is to move this resolution tabled to the next meeting. Can I take a vote? Jude?
Hold on, you're out of order. Your motion has, yes, Robert's rule, your motion has not been seconded. I didn't hear it.
Second.
I make a motion for this resolution to be tabled to the next meeting.
Second.
Okay, or there is a motion on the floor that this resolution be tabled to the next meeting. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed?
Can we do a roll call?
Don't
Everyone did not say yes.
Hold on, you're not the chair. You don't need a roll call vote.
Yes, I'm asking for one by Robert's rules of law.
Okay, but you don't, because it passed, and I'm dictating it passed.
But it's not majority on the record. I just need it on the record.
Okay, the motion has passed.
Thank you, Board Chair, with that resolution. This resolution, I'll ask for a vote as well. And this is what we saw based on the variances that come up with CHS and now the locals, where the variances that come up from DOT every 6 months to a year. And realizing that our minimum standards have not been reviewed and looked at since 1975. I am actually making a motion to create an ad hoc committee to review the minimum standards and provide per section and provide recommendations every 90 days, starting first quarter FY 2025. I am asking that that committee be made up of course, legal individuals with legal experience, with the judge being the chair. Vice Chair Skipper being on the committee, Dr. Corn for historical and medical working with CHS, with the chair being ex facto as well. I did ask for a resolution, but what we see over and over is the variances that have to come up from CHS, from DOC, and that our minimum standards have not been reviewed and updated for evidence-based practices since 1975. And with the new rulemaking and the changes that have happened around the local laws and with the barrel base, this will be an extremely good time to review our minimum standards and update them. Can staff read the resolution I asked for? Oh.
Second.
Whereas New York City Charter Section 626 Subdivision E authorizes the Board of Correction to establish minimum standards for the care, custody, correction, treatment, supervision, and discipline of all persons held or confined under the jurisdiction of the Department of Correction, whereas the board last conducted a comprehensive review and updated the minimum standards for New York City correctional facilities in November 2007, whereas the board has not conducted a comprehensive review and update of the mental health minimum standards and healthcare minimum standards since they were implemented in 1985 and 1991 respectively, whereas pursuant to its charter mandated duty to establish minimum standards, it is the duty of the board to ensure that the minimum standards reflect best medical and mental health practices and accurately represent the current state of operations in correctional facilities. Whereas Article 6 of the board's rules of procedure sets forth that the board shall establish committees as it deems necessary, that the board shall appoint members of each committee, and any board member may propose the establishment of a committee of the board. Now therefore be it resolved that the board will establish a minimum standards review committee, which will be chaired by board member Honorable Barry Cozier and comprised of board chair Dwayne Sampson, ex officio, board member Helen Skipper, vice chair Helen Skipper, and board member Dr. Robert Cohen to review the minimum standards and make recommendations accordingly every 90 days, beginning the first quarter of fiscal year 2025. And it is further and finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be posted conspicuously on the board's website.
A motion has been made and duly seconded. The resolution has been read by our executive director. Again, this goes to the bylaws in the bylaws review. And I still recommend that this resolution be tabled for further discussion after we address the bylaws issues.
Can we take a roll call vote on the resolution and then the motion afterwards, Jude?
Well, you can't go to Jude. You gotta come back to me because I'm the chair. No, not. Okay. There's been a call for a roll call vote to the resolution. And I'll start from this side, Vice Chair. Aye. Board Member Hoskins. Aye. Judge Cozier.
I just think to be consistent, we should table this as well.
Well, that's not, there was a resolution on the board, on the table right now, so.
I voted no.
Yeah, so I vote yes. And I think basically what this resolution says is we're gonna look at the standards again, after we haven't done it for a long time. And that's totally a worthwhile thing to do, Chair. And I think it's not always appropriate, but now it is. It's been a long time. So I vote yes.
Yes. Board Member Ramos.
I vote no.
Board Member Pitts.
Just to be on the record, I do think that the minimum standards should be reviewed and updated, but I'm not caring for how this is coming about in this meeting, and I'm saying no at the moment.
Board Member Jude. And I vote no. So that is a 4-4 tie, And that means the resolution does not pass.
No, it means it's failed and it should be tabled. We don't, didn't fail or pass. So it should be tabled. I'll make the motion.
You can make it, yeah, it's fine. 'Cause you-
Since the motion did not pass nor fail, because it was 4-4, I'm asked to make a motion to move this resolution to the next meeting for a vote. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, is this a roll call vote? Okay, so another roll call vote has been asked to move the resolution before us to the next board meeting. Again, I think that's where it should have been in the first place. So Jude, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 Yes. Okay, so unanimous that the resolution will be addressed at the next board meeting. And just a note for record, if the bylaws are changed in arranged differently and accepted by this board, whatever those recommendations are, it may impact the wording of these resolutions. Okay, but for the record, the resolutions are notable and worthy, for sure. Now, I think we're at the, I guess you call it the bewitching hour. I'd like to thank you. Thank you to everyone who attended and participated in today's meeting. The board does not have a meeting in August. The board's next meeting is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there all in favor to adjournment?
Aye.
Thank you to all our speakers
With
and to all our
objection,
participants.
the meeting is now
Thank you.
adjourned.
All right.